How do NASCAR V6 and inline-4 engines differ? Imagine you're at a race and hear the roar of engines. But did you know that not all engines sound the same or work the same way? Today, we're going to look at how V6 and inline-4 engines differ, especially in the world of racing and car rules. While NASCAR mostly uses V8 engines, understanding V6 and inline-4 setups helps explain engine choices in other racing series and cars. First, let's talk about how these engines are built. A V6 engine has 6 cylinders arranged into banks of 3 cylinders each, forming a V shape. This design makes the engine shorter and more compact, which is good for fitting into smaller spaces. An inline-4 engine has 4 cylinders lined up in a straight line along the crankshaft. This setup is simpler and longer than a V6 of the same number of cylinders. When it comes to power, V6 engines usually produce more because they have more cylinders. They can burn more fuel and air mixture each cycle, giving more torque and horsepower. Inline-4 engines are more fuel efficient and lighter but tend to produce less power. In racing, power is everything. NASCAR cars typically use large V8 engines that produce between 650 and 800 horsepower. These engines are built for durability and high performance. V6 and inline-4 engines are not common in NASCAR racing because they don't meet the power needs of the sport. Size and shape also matter. V6 engines are shorter because of their V shape, making them easier to fit into tight spaces. Inline-4 engines are longer but narrower, which can influence how a car handles and how weight is distributed. Mechanical complexity is another difference. V6 engines have more parts, making them more expensive and harder to maintain. Inline-4 engines are simpler with fewer parts, which makes them cheaper and easier to fix. In the world of NASCAR, regulations favor big V8 engines because of their power and durability. Smaller engines like V6 or inline-4 are not standard in the top racing series. However, in other racing types or future NASCAR rules, smaller engines might be considered, especially with new hybrid or fuel-saving technologies. To sum up, V6 engines have more cylinders, are shorter, and produce more power, while inline-4 engines are simpler, lighter, and more fuel-efficient. NASCAR's focus on powerful V8 engines means V6 and inline-4 engines are not common in the main series. But understanding these differences helps explain how engines work in different cars and racing rules.